8:14 p.m. St. Arden had detonated with alarms as paramedics tore through the doors with a dying SEAL sniper. Blood trailing in a line that looked like a battlefield dragged into fluorescent light. 20 doctors surged, barking protocols, scrambling with instruments, shouting orders over his failing vitals until the sniper snapped awake. Not confused, not sedated, trained. His gaze hunted shadows, oxygen mask torn away, hand reaching for a rifle that wasn't there. "Do not touch me," he roared, kicking so hard the gurney slammed into steel railings. Security froze. Doctors backed off. This wasn't panic. This was combat instincts slamming into civilian chaos. Then the smallest figure in the room stepped forward. Nurse Ava Rios. She shouldn't have approached him, but when she leaned beside his blood-slick ear and whispered her call sign, a name that died in classified files long before she wore hospital shoes. Iron Wolf. The sniper froze mid-ra, breath shaking, voice cracking. How are you still alive?" And in one heartbeat, the EL learned the quiet nurse they dismissed had once been the SEAL medic who walked the Gulf Sands with 30 confirmed kills. Before we start, drop a quick comment. Never judge. Hit subscribe if you believe quiet heroes deserve to be seen. It's free and it keeps these stories alive. 8:14 p.m. St. Arden erupted like a breach under floodlights. Paramedics barreled in with a gurney, leaving a trail of blood behind it. Thick, steady, too dark for comfort. The man on it wasn't just wounded. He was wrecked. Flank torn, ribs groaning with each breath. Combat gear cut open in a hurry that didn't save time. Only dignity. 20 doctors closed in at once. Prep trauma bay, move. We need sedation. Chest imaging. Compressions ready. The SEAL sniper came awake mid-sentence, not groggy, not confused, trained. His arm shot up, ripping the oxygen line, eyes flaring so wild and precise. The nearest surgeon stumbled back like he'd seen a scope pointed at him. "Don't touch me," he said, voice deep enough to shake steel trays. "Not one of you." The monitor screamed in protest. 1-4 pole tipped, a resident's pen clattered to tile. He wasn't resisting treatment. He was resisting surrender. A security officer reached for restraints. "No," the attending snapped. "We are doing this clean and controlled." The sniper twisted so hard against the rails that the bed jerked an inch. "You strap me down, I'm gone," he warned. "I will crawl out of here bleeding." They all froze. Not because he was stronger, but because the look in his eyes said he'd already done it before. A few steps back, a young nurse paused, tray in hand. Ava Rios, night shift, overlooked, calm in a storm that never learned her name. The ER called her rookie like it was her uniform. She didn't look at the shouting surgeons. She looked at him. Blood soaked through dressings along his right flank, creeping upward with each labored breath. The pattern wasn't chaotic. It radiated in angles. AA's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, reading geometry, not gore. "Sir, you're in a safe facility." The chief trauma surgeon tried again. "We need access. You don't have clearance." The sniper snapped. "Back off." Ava stepped forward. It was small, silent, almost unnoticeable except to him. "Rios out." The attending barked. "This is not your case. He's combative and you are not cleared to be." She kept walking. Doctors stared at her like she'd malfunctioned. The sniper tracked her approach, breath hitched, muscles tightening again. "No closer. I don't know who you people are." Ava didn't flinch. No apology, no bravado. She set the tray down beside the bed and leaned in until only he could hear her. 6 quiet syllables spoken like memory rather than command rolled past her lips. His entire body stilled, not softened, not surrendered, stilled. His jaw trembled once. The only crack in a fortress of training. "That can't be you," a resident whispered behind a gloved hand. Did he just recognize her? No one answered because no one could. Ava didn't explain, didn't confirm, didn't deny. Her expression didn't shift so much as a millimeter. Only her eyes carried something old. "Lie back," she murmured. "You're bleeding faster than they think." He stared at her like he'd seen a ghost inside a fluorescent room. "You don't understand," he whispered. This wasn't random. They were waiting on the roof. Ava paused with the gauze halfway lifted. She hadn't flinched when he raged, but she flinched now. "How specific?" she asked quietly. "Exact nest," he rasped. "Exact time. Exact angle. Someone burned my hide before we even cleared comms." A few doctors exchanged looks. Confusion, not comprehension. But Ava didn't look confused. She looked like she'd just swallowed a past life hole. The attending stepped forward, voice rising. "Nurse Rios, step aside. This is beyond your." Ava peeled back the soaked bandage. She didn't gasp. She didn't shout. She went very, very still. Fragments spread. Thoracic hinge bruising. Blowback that didn't fan. It focused. Not enemy fire. Not street blast. Not even IED chaos. A shape-charge rooftop place meant for one nest and one nest only. The sniper watched her face. "You've seen that pattern," he said quietly. "Haven't you?" She didn't answer. One heartbeat, two across the glass, two men in suits appeared. No badges, no scrubs, no rush. The kind of men who watched, not helped. Ava's throat tightened. "Scan him," one surgeon insisted behind her. "We need imaging now." "You scanned too deeply without decompressing," she murmured, eyes still on the wound. "And you collapsed the lung you're trying to save." Heads turned, brows lifted. Nobody moved. "How do you know that?" A resident whispered. Ava didn't blink. "The same way he knows I'm not here to restrain him." The sniper's eyes softened just a fraction. Not relief, not trust, but recognition of a voice he once followed through smoke. He swallowed hard. "They told me the nest was safe. Coordinates were sealed." Ava held his gaze, hers dark and painfully clear. "They weren't sealed," she said. "They were sold." His breath broke. Monitors spiked. The surgeon surged. "Give him space." Ava snapped. It wasn't volume that stopped them. It was certainty. The suits behind the glass lifted phones to their ears simultaneously. Overhead, the speakers crackled. South Wing lockdown initiated. Military liaison inbound. The attending spun toward the hallway. What? Why? Who ordered? The sniper reached for Ava's wrist, grip shaking, voice raw. "They're not here for me." She didn't have to ask who they were here for because she already knew. The ER lights hummed overhead, monitors filled the hush, and for the first time since he'd been dragged through the automatic doors, the SEAL stopped resisting. Not for sedatives, not for surgeons, not for authority, for her. Ava stepped back, pulse steady, gaze cutting once more to the wound that belonged to a rooftop betrayal she'd prayed she'd never see again. She didn't whisper. She didn't comfort. She said the only words that mattered. "We need to move fast before the ones watching decide he doesn't leave this hospital." The room froze. The suit stepped closer, and the sniper, stabilized only by her voice, whispered the truth she'd tried to bury. "They burned my nest the same way they burned yours." 8:19 p.m. turned into a corridor of held breath. The suits outside the trauma glass didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't touch the door handle. They just watched Ava. Not the man bleeding out, not the surgeons, her. Inside, the room had separated into two kinds of people. The ones who still believed this was a standard trauma case and the ones who just realized it wasn't. The attending finally spoke, voice clipped to hide the tremor. "Rios, enough. Step back. Whatever personal connection he thinks he has to you, it doesn't change protocol." Ava didn't move. The sniper tried to adjust, but even the inch of motion sent a grimace across his jaw, blood seeping through fresh gauze. He wasn't resisting now, but the tension in his muscles still lived like memory. Elbows tucked, ribs guarded, throat tight for a silent kill order. "They timed it," he said. Softly, eyes fixed on Ava. Extraction window changed at the last minute. Only 5 people had that update. A murmur rippled behind her. The surgeons weren't trained for this kind of fear, not of death, but of intentional death. Targeted ruin. Ava didn't look up at them. Her mind didn't need charts or imaging. It had patterns etched into it from a war she never discussed. "Who changed it?" she asked, voice steady. He swallowed, sweat sliding down his temple. "Home base. Someone high. Someone who knew I trusted rooftop nests more than convoys." AA's heartbeat flickered. Not panic, but recognition. He hadn't been hit because he broke formation. He'd been hit because formation broke him. The attending cleared his throat sharply. "Enough. We need scans before we start inventing conspiracy." "No," Ava said. Not loud, just final. Residents stared. Not at her authority, but at the way she said it without apology. That word from her mouth didn't sound like defiance. It sounded like fact. "You scan," she continued. "And his right lung collapses against the pressure. His pleural space is too tight from the blast geometry. He needs decompression first, imaging second. The attending blinked. Blast geometry? Where exactly were you trained? His voice died when Ava removed her gloves and reached for fresh ones. Calm, surgical, precise. She wasn't emotional. She wasn't rattled. She was operating from instinct older than this hospital. The sniper's eyes didn't leave her. He wasn't watching a nurse. He was watching someone who had once walked rooftops beside him. New angles humans shouldn't survive. Recognized placement not as injury, but as intention. The surgeon nearest her lowered his voice. Rios, are you saying this was deliberate sabotage? Ava didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was the answer. She turned the sniper's body just enough to re-expose the wound's edge. Doctors leaned in, expecting carnage. Instead, they saw something worse. Clean fragmentation. Too clean. A blast that didn't scatter and it guided. No chaos. No panic. No warning. A professional burn. The sniper's voice came out raw, almost ashamed. If I hadn't moved when I did, they'd have taken my head. That charge wasn't built to scare me off the nest. It was built to erase it. A nurse gasped. Someone dropped a pen. The suits outside didn't move. Ava spoke only to him. How did they know where you'd be? He didn't blink. I told you only 5 people. Only 5 had the update. Ava's jaw locked slightly. He was listing the same number she once had back when there were 5, then 4, then 3, then a rooftop that never gave all of them back. Before another word could land, monitors shrieked. Heart rate climbing fast, oxygen dipping, pressure dropping in a way that looked wild but wasn't. This wasn't panic. This was his body remembering the blast before his mind did. A resident rushed for the sedative tray. No, the sniper barked, voice laced with terror. Ava lifted a hand, a quiet, unspoken signal. Don't touch him. The room obeyed. The attending stared. You can't let a combative patient dictate care. He's not combative. Ava said he's responding to precision trauma. You sedate him now. You trigger tactile flash and you'll lose him to the memory, not the injury. She pressed 2 fingers lightly against the sniper's shoulder. Not pressure, not restraint, presence. His breathing slowed by degrees, the alarm still beeped erratically, but the man beneath them unclenched. Everyone else finally saw it. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of disappearing the same way the roof tried to take him. The suits outside finally moved. One lifting a phone, the other lowering blinds halfway. The glass reflected their faces, but Ava didn't turn. She checked the bleed again. Slow, methodical, her expression not horrified. Confirmed. The exact pattern she prayed she'd never see again. Rios, the attending said, voice quiet now. You're not just a night nurse, are you? Ava didn't respond. The sniper did. She's the one they never debriefed. The only one who walked out. When the rest of us didn't. The room didn't gasp this time. They just went still. Ava set her jaw and finally looked at the attending. Scans in 15 minutes, she said. Chest tube first. Stabilized lung, then imaging, and only when his vitals can tolerate supine. The attending nodded without arguing, not because he understood, but because her certainty was louder than his training. The sniper exhaled, eyes softening only toward her. Thank you, he whispered, voice fraying. Ava didn't blink. Don't thank me, she said. Just stay awake. His gaze flicked again toward the blinds where the suits still stood. They'll ask for me, he murmured. They always ask for the survivor. Ava froze. Then, just for a heartbeat, she let truth show beneath the scrubs. No, she said softly. This time, they came for me. Every doctor in the room felt the temperature drop. The blinds finished closing. The hallway went silent. And the seals on whatever pass she carried cracked just enough to let the next detail bleed. If you're still here, comment, never judge. 8:24 p.m. turned the trauma bay into a war room dressed in hospital linen. The blinds were now fully closed, sealing out the corridor, sealing in the truth none of them were ready for. The suits outside didn't leave. Their silhouettes held position, still patient, predatory. Inside, every doctor waited for Ava to move because somehow she'd become gravity. Not by force, but by knowing. The sniper's breathing roughened again. Shallow returns. Pressure building beneath bone and bandage. His fingers tightened around the rail. Not panic, not resistance, but readiness. The kind soldiers have right before the second blast hits. Ava moved fast, methodical, pulling the chest kick close. The attending stepped toward her, half protest, half surrender. Rios, if you're wrong, then he dies slower, she said. Calm, surgical, too certain for doubt. The resident nearest them swallowed hard and adjusted the suction line. The entire room held the air like an unfused charge. Ava cleaned the site. Antiseptic sweep over fractured ribs and bruised tissue. The pattern of the injury told more than scans ever could. Right thoracic cavity, blast lung, hemispheric fragmentation, directed explosive. Someone wanted him removed clean. The sniper met her gaze, jaw tight. They burned the nest. They wanted the body to look like collapse, not execution. Ava's face showed nothing, but deep inside, something old and feral shifted. The memory of a stairwell that caved inward. Of teammates whose names were scrubbed not from Valor lists, but from existence. She positioned the needle. He didn't flinch. He braced like he'd been here before. On my count, she murmured. No, he rasped. On yours. I follow your voice. The doctors exchanged glances. Confusion, awe, discomfort, but not disbelief anymore. Not after the pattern. Not after the suits. Not after the blackout blinds. Ava inserted the needle clean. Controlled. A rush of trapped air hissed from the pleural cavity. Pressure long enough contained breaking into release. The sniper inhaled sharply. Not pain, relief. A lung finally allowed to expand. His vitals climbed with agonizing caution, like a meter remembering what survival feels like. His stabilizing, a resident breathed. Ava didn't smile, didn't sag, didn't show triumph. She adjusted oxygen flow, tone quiet. He's not safe. He's just breathing. The attending finally asked the question, waiting on everyone's tongue. How did you know that placement? Ava didn't look up. You don't learn blast patterns from textbooks. One of the younger surgeons whispered. Then where? The sniper answered for her. Rooftops. Same as mine. Same angle. Same signature. All heads turned. Ava didn't confirm. She didn't deny. She only changed gloves and checked the drain output. Swinging the gurney light. So the wound sat under truth. Before anyone could speak again, the intercom crackled. Military liaison entering South Wing. All personnel remain in current stations. Ava's eyes flicked to the blinds. The suits still hadn't moved. They were. Waiting, but not for the patient. They'd known he'd survived the blast long before they got the alert. They were waiting for her. The sniper saw it, too. They'll tear this place apart to get to you. Ava removed a blooded pad. Voice a whisper lost beneath machine hum. They already did, just not this building. The words settled like dust after detonation. A nurse dropped a clamp. No one stooped to retrieve it. The attending paced toward the door, tension riding his spine. I want answers. Who authorized? What are they doing here? This is a hospital. Ava didn't react. You won't get answers. You'll get classification. The room silenced again because her tone didn't leave room for debate. It was resignation, not fear, not badge pride, just the understanding that once war touches fluorescent tile, democracy leaves through the service elevator. The sniper winced, voice tightening. Did they pull you back in? Ava taped the tubing, fingers steady in a way her pulse was not. No one pulls me anywhere anymore. I left quietly. He stared at her like that sentence was worse than any wound. You walked out of a black file. They don't let ghosts walk. She met his gaze with something nearly human. They did once. He swallowed hard and they regret it. Ava turned away from the bed, then the only moment of retreat since she approached him. She braced her hands on the counter, breath shallow, shoulders tight. The memory wasn't of gunfire or blood or rooftop collapse. It was of silence afterward, not mourning, eraser. The attending tried again, words gentler now. Rios, you don't have to. Whatever happened, you're here now. You're safe. Ava exhaled through her nose. Slow. You don't get hunted because you're safe. The overhead lights buzzed in the quiet. The sniper shifted despite the pain, pulling her attention back to him. You didn't answer me, he murmured. Who sold the nest? Ava's jaw worked once, a muscle ticking beneath skin. She leaned back over the wound, re-evaluating drain output. Not making eye contact. Don't ask questions you aren't cleared to hear, she whispered. Not in this room. His breathing slowed, not calming, but accepting. This wasn't fear. This was experience. He'd seen the look in her eyes before in the faces of men told they weren't soldiers anymore, but shadows of classified cleanup. Before she stepped back fully, alarm spiked again. Not catastrophic, but insistent. Ava glanced up, heart rate climbing in rhythm, not panic. Something else. Position change coming, she muttered. Flash feedback. The sniper's hand shot out, gripping the rail, knuckles bone white. It's the light. He breathed, eyes unfocused. The way it flickers, the roof had that same. He didn't finish. The blinds moved. They didn't open fully. Just an inch. Enough to show the corridor. Enough to show the third suit now beside the first two. Not two watchers. Three. And the third wasn't looking at the sniper. He was looking at Ava. The way a man studies a classified file redacted down to its bones. The sniper followed her gaze, voice a whisper of threat, not fear. They didn't send liaison for me. Ava turned away from the glass, focusing on vitals she'd already stabilized because they were safer than truth. They never were. The attending took a step back, finally understanding the hierarchy of tonight. Medicine didn't own this room. The hospital didn't either. Whatever Ava had walked away from in the desert corridors, rooftop fire, extraction fog, had found her here between antiseptic and paperwork. The sniper closed his eyes just enough to hide the tremor. I won't let them take you. Ava didn't soften, didn't blink, didn't let comfort take shape in her voice. It's not your decision and not your fight. He opened his eyes again, the steel returning. It is if they burn me just to bring you out. Ava froze halfway through a dressing change. She didn't look at him, but she didn't move either because he was right. They hadn't targeted him to erase him. They'd targeted him to reveal her. The blind shifted another inch, and the third suit lifted a badge. Unmarked, uncolor-coded. Authority without insignia. The kind that doesn't ask, the kind that arrives. The blinds rose a final inch, not enough to open the world, only enough to prove it was already inside. 3 suits now, all identical, all still. The nearest surgeon backed away from the gurney as if distance might make him unimportant. The resident who'd whispered earlier now stood with arms tied across his chest, silently begging not to be noticed. Nurses adjusted carts with no intention of touching them. The attending swallowed, the sound audible over the heart monitor. Ava didn't turn. She tightened the chest seal, checked the line, read the output, every motion deliberate, every second borrowed. She had seen rooms like this before, not hospitals. Debrief stations dressed as triage tents, command rooms pretending to be rescue. The sniper, pale but breathing with newfound depth, tracked her hands with unwavering focus. You can still walk away, he murmured. She didn't answer because he was wrong and they both knew it. The door to the trauma bay clicked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a click. Enough to end denial. The third suit stepped inside. No announcement, no badge flash, no clearance level named. His shoes were polished, too clean for a south wing that had just held death by inches. He nodded once to the attending. Respect, not greeting, and then to Ava. Rios. Ava didn't look at him. Not yet. She removed blooded gloves, disposed of them carefully, the way someone disposes of evidence. You shouldn't be here, she said. On the contrary, the man answered, voice calm. This is the safest possible place for you for the moment. It wasn't a threat, which made it worse. The sniper pushed himself higher despite the tubing. She kept me breathing. You want a medal handed to someone? Give it to her. If you came for me. We didn't, the man said. He said it gently, like explaining whether. Ava finally faced him. Then say it, she breathed. Say why. He studied her face, searching for a crack. There wasn't one. She'd closed those fault lines years ago. You left a program without debrief, he said. Without exit interview, without reintegration, without trace, we let it stand. We did not pursue you. We honored your request for removal. Request, she repeated, as if tasting rust. You earned it, he replied, until the signature reappeared. The room thickened, air too heavy to breathe. Fluorescent hums suddenly predatory. The sniper's voice sharpened. She didn't reappear. You flushed her by burning a nest. The suit didn't blink. Your extraction breach was unfortunate, he said to the sniper. But necessary. The surgeons flinched. Security froze. Ava closed her eyes. You staged a blast. The sniper growled. You made it look like enemy fire. We made it look like war. The suit corrected. War is easier to explain than reclamation. The sniper tried to sit upright. Too fast, too hard. Pain folded him, breath stuttering, monitors objecting. Ava steadied him, palm against shoulder, touch careful but grounding. Easy, she murmured. He deflated, not for her hand, but for her voice. The man in the suit let the moment hang before speaking again. The call sign you used, he said to Ava, was believed retired. His reaction confirms it remains active, which means you remain active whether you desire it or not. She shook her head, slow, controlled. I buried that name. And yet, he replied, it answered tonight. A memory flashed behind her eyes. Dust in her throat, rooftop collapsing. 3 men she couldn't drag out because command ordered her to leave the breathing ahead of the dying. The blast sound that didn't echo but folded in. The sniper saw it on her face and spoke before she could fall back into it. She didn't come here to disappear. She came here because disappearing was the only way the rest of us walk home. A flicker, almost pity, crossed the suit's expression. You were never meant to heal in civilian cloth, he said. You were meant to consult, train, advise, stay behind glass. Not here. Not unlisted. Ava's voice steadied into steel. I stayed where no one asked me to bury another man alive. The attending blinked hard at that, as though realizing at last that every shift she clocked in was a quiet act of resistance. The suit stepped forward, not hostile, not demanding, but inevitable. You are reinstated under advisory designation iron. No. Ava snapped the single sharp sound razor clean. You don't use that name here. The sniper forced her breath knuckles wide around the rail. You set me up, he said to the suit. You injured me to draw her out. We knew Blast Lung would not kill you, the suit replied. We knew she would answer. We needed confirmation she still existed. Ava's chest tightened. Not panic, not shock, but the kind of betrayal delivered by people who speak in strategy instead of blood. You could have asked, she said. We did, he replied. You didn't answer. You sent silence, she whispered. He nodded. Because silence is the only thing operatives respond to. The sniper looked between them, realization landing cold. This wasn't extraction, he muttered. This was recall. Ava turned away, hands braced on the counter, shoulders locked. I won't go back. You don't need to, the suit said. Your presence here is enough. Your name woke the dead tonight. That is all command wanted to confirm. She looked at him then, eyes glassed but unbroken. And if I refuse alignment, he smiled without warmth. Then you continue as you are. As long as you remain quiet, as long as you do not speak what you know, as long as you stay exactly who you pretended to be when you put on those scrubs. The sniper shook his head. She is not a ghost for your filing cabinet. She is, the suit countered softly, the reason you're alive. Silence. Heavy. Unmoving. Grief-shaped. Ava touched the sniper's wrist gently, grounding him in a way no sedative could. You didn't die on that roof, she whispered. Neither did you, he answered. A nurse behind them exhaled a breath she'd been holding for minutes. The suit stepped back. You are both cleared, he said. For now, your reports remain sealed. This facility will never know the depth of what walked through its doors tonight. He paused at the threshold. It is better that way. When he left, the room didn't exhale. It just shifted back into gravity. Ava checked vitals again, hand steady, heart not. The sniper watched her, not in awe, not in debt, but in something deeper, recognition unburied. Thank you, he said. For the lung, for coming back to a world that didn't deserve you. She almost smiled. Almost. You deserved breathing, she said. That was enough. He let his eyes close. Not from sedation, not from defeat, but from safety. Real safety. The kind no agency could offer. Ava took one step back, then two. She reached the doorway. The staff parted. No applause, no spoken respect, just space finally granted to someone they never really saw. She paused, hand on the frame, heartbeat finally slowing into the body she'd borrowed to survive this long. When she looked back, it wasn't at the suits or the surgeons. It was at the man she'd once patched under night vision and unmarked sky. If you believe someone like him deserves more than being used, she whispered, voice cracking just once, then remember someone like me doesn't disappear because you forget. She stepped out, lights buzzed, monitor steadied. War tucked itself back into the veins of a quiet nurse's life. If this story moved you even a little, please subscribe. Not for numbers, not for algorithm, for the silent ones who served, saved, and vanished so others didn't have to. Drop a comment.